All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 35. And the Gettysburg Expeditionary Force has been thoroughly crushed. It's been hammered back.
That's right.
By the power of Thor.
And but now our twin sons are on the way to salvage the situation, if that is possible at this point.
Because the Alliance has part of its fleet chasing them, which is going to drag out this fight and make it into something where the tactics and the advantage that they have by being in proximity to Iserlon will not be a thing.
And especially considering the fact that the amount of forces they have out here is quite limited.
It is.
That's a big deal.
It is a fleet that just won a victory, so they're on the high of that. But they're still just kind of one fleet, even with the extras that they got from Yang's reinforcements.
That was only 5,000.
Yeah, it was a really small number comparatively to the scale of what typically comes in an Imperial fleet. And this is 2 of them on the way. Now, they don't know that.
That's true.
But the thing is that in some ways, the worst part about this is that the current, commander, the leftovers of the Gettysburg Expeditionary Forces, he's quite motivated to get revenge. So he won't just go out with a Yang.
Although that might be something that he wants to do in the future.
That's possible.
Specifically with Yang.
We also have the stuff going on with the Fejon Dominion via Kesserling, continuing to put the pincers on the Alliance to remind them a little bit of where the pecking order is here with regards to diplomacy.
While at the same time doing it with plausible deniability and, oh, no, we're just... I didn't intend for any of this to happen.
Yeah, you guys chose to do that.
Just a happy coincidence. I mean, a horrible, horrible tragedy.
Yes. So, Yang, you gotta salvage this. And maybe pull another miracle here. It would actually be really cool to see maybe more of a standoff kind of encounter with their Gale Wolf and Heterochromia Ruental,
I mean, they are kind of the 2 best minds of the tacticians in the Empire, other than Reinhardt right now, I feel like.
No, Oberstein.
Well, okay, that have forces under their command. Oberstein's dog is very formidable, but I don't
Oberstein
think...
has some people underneath him.
Sure.
Yeah. Y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Okay, this was a very well thematically kind of tied together episode.
Right. Especially compared to the previous episodes where there was so much like immediate plot stuff happening in the moment. This episode almost felt like it was just a sort of breather, relaxing episode, but they went through a ton of the characters.
Almost the entire cast in terms of where their main locations are.
Right. And also what they want, because this is... The story is transitioning into a new period, right?
And it's been doing
history. A new period of history. And it's been doing that over the past several episodes.
That's true.
Right? But now it's like, okay, given that this is happening, what's all our parts going to be in it, right? Whether it's Julian officially enlisting in the military, or Ruental Kesserling doing his whole play against,
to get Fejon potentially for himself even.
Because apparently he's Rubinsky's bastard son. Okay.
Cool. But then Ruental also being like, he's like looking at the way things are. He's like, maybe I should have done things differently. Maybe I should have looked at the potential immediate future problems that would come from Kircheis's death and be like, Reinhardt was his weakest right there at that moment. There was probably an opportunity to seize power, but would it have worked out? Who knows?
And almost maybe even more importantly, that the Reinhardt that he followed maybe isn't around anymore. Maybe he died with Kircheis.
He's very, at the very least, dying.
Right. And that is definitely an opportunity then, but it's also something where then there's kind of a bit of a forcing function of, well, I don't want to be stagnant, so It should do something, right?
Right.
And then, so
then he's feeding lines to Mittermeier.
Right. And then you've got Hildegard, where she's like,
right,
there needs to be another Kircheis.
Yes.
And she's I will try and be that.
I kind of feel like I have to be that.
Right.
But I don't want to be that. Like, I wish it wasn't necessarily needing to be this way.
But then, so the whole thing of like, okay, yeah, finding his sister and, getting in touch with her and things like that. It's like, all right, yeah, it's probably a real good idea.
Yes.
But, oh boy.
Oh my God.
A lot of things are moving.
That's just on their side. But then the idea that on Yang's side of things, he just lost a huge chunk of ships on the most meaningless fight.
Mm-hmm.
And those admirals or commanders or captains, those... yeah, it was funny. I got the name wrong of one of them. It was Von Hue, not Lau. Dumbass. Von Hue and Alarcon, I believe.
Alarcon, yeah.
They just completely had their fleets decimated.
Yep.
Yang has, his whole thing where he's getting a little bit of a cold or what have you. But his conversation with Julian very much ties this whole thing together with regards to, history is something that's quite fascinating, and that we as soldiers in this conflict will end up doing things that might put our mark on history.
Mm-hmm.
But that power that we have can lead to positions where we end up oppressing people rather than actually doing something helpful for history. So he wants to be the one that can then define the great acts of humanity, showcase them, give them a spotlight, but also call out the bullshit and the crimes that tyrants and horrible people end up doing. And yet,
collect the legend.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case, we have so many characters that all don't want to get lost or swept aside in history.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to do something to make a name for themselves. They have desires and dreams and ambitions and
even
goals.
Hildegard's cousin, who we saw that one time and is now ominously
panicking about death and everything. Yeah.
Right, and we had that ominous bit with him before, so what's he going to do? I have no idea, but all right.
Yeah, and all this is while the main two characters actually feel like the most swept up in this whole thing and like a slave to the acts of history. They don't feel like they have the free will or the control to be able to make their lives go the way they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Everyone else around them,
the ghost of Kircheis.
Yeah, that's
he's haunted.
That's a big deal. Like, okay, Reinhardt, yes, control the universe and everything, but maybe get a therapist. Just sort of like talk things through.
Just talk it out.
Yeah, and also, and it's tough because his sister kind of said, I don't really want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
But you need somebody.
She's going to come back, though.
I think so.
She's going to come back.
I think that's what Hildegard's doing.
Yep, it's smart.
And
it's very smart.
Very smart, because that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be too late already.
Right. It's probably going to be something where, because of the way Reinhardt has kind of set himself in this, it's become maybe already too much of a pattern where even if he gets a temporary salve from it with regards to his sister coming back to help him, be there for him, he ends up able to talk about this stuff a lot. He needs to do some things that will build the pattern in order to keep it moving in a positive direction. Otherwise, it's like the pull of a planet, around the sun. It's going to immediately kind of, or not immediately, but it's going to slowly go back into orbit.
I feel like what Reinhardt needs to do actually is he needs to go back to the front lines.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like he does better when he's actually taking action.
Sure.
And in this situation here, he's delegating other people to take action. Because
it's,
Right, but that's also something that he can... It will remind the people that follow him why they respected him and why they followed him in the first place.
Yes, this won't help his mental problems, but it will help steer his subordinates a little bit more to be kind of
it'll
confident in him.
It'll help in that regard, but I think with regards to his mental problems, it'll return him to that place of normalcy enough where it's I'm familiar with this, as opposed to
I'm good at this.
But
he is good at being a dictator too.
Yes, but I feel like it's something where it's very different, so he's sort of lost touch on maybe why he's doing all the stuff that he's doing. Like Mariendorf commented on how, is any of his sort of youthful idealism still around, right? And I need to make sure that it doesn't go away completely. That's something where, you know, right now his life basically revolves around, you know, dining and getting reports from his men and things like that and making decisions, right? Which, you know,
I mean, he wields supreme executive power.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So he's got supreme executive power, so he's kind of got to do a lot of that stuff.
I think he's also probably too busy, you know, shifting and reforming everything at this point.
Yeah.
So I would say, if anything, Fejon's going to make their move, and then Reinhardt's going to be like, fine, I'll do it myself. Then hopefully he'll get drawn out in that regard, because he'll also get an assassination attempt on him somewhere in that time frame. So that might anger him enough to where he does that. But I feel like his strength right now as a political leader is that he's constantly there and enacting new reform,
and he is helping the people. He is forcefully, and they don't have any choice about it.
Right,
but, you know,
it's for your own good.
Right.
But because he's there, I think that's part of the reason why, if anything, the only person that right now we're worried about on the Empire side of things trying to seize power from him is Ruenthal, someone in the military, someone who's not close to him. The idea is that if he moved towards the front lines, Ruenthal might have more opportunities to do something like that, in addition to any kind of, you know, potentially politicians or what have you that might have some kind of setup on, you know, Odin. But I feel like him being at the seat of the Empire gives him no worries about anyone trying anything, because he's not in some kind of a situation where someone can just turn their fleet on him and just kill him. And
there's combat. Reasons why it's going the way it is going right now. Our boy Reinhardt's not doing well.
Our boy Reinhardt really needs to talk on a couch. Let's talk about this Fejon stuff. So there's a couple things in motion now, just to help keep this all in, you know, straight in my head here. So Kesserling has his two guys that he's basically corralled together in this awkward kind of couple of assassins,
right?
And you know, one of them has a very particular personal motivation to go and kill Reinhardt. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute, I just had a crazy thought.
What
if it was that Kesserling, this is actually his play on Fejon?
Well,
by
eventually will be.
No. But what if the whole point is because these guys seem fairly ridiculous. Why would they be sent to assassinate Reinhardt? One of them's a poet, for God's sakes, right? Like
maybe he has a skill that we just haven't learned about.
Yeah, he totally could. That's probably what it is.
Probably that he can bullshit his way through any kind of conversation and get them into places they should be able to get to.
Or maybe help spin things afterwards, have connections in order to manipulate the aftermath of if he dies, right?
Sure.
Which is even more important than the actual
blunt
assassination.
Is the one that he's also manipulating.
Exactly.
Maybe. Right. Sure.
But what if it was something where Kesserling actually intentionally was wanting them to go on an assassination attempt and fail?
Okay.
And then it will fall on the current youngster of Fejon, which is Rubinsky.
Well, okay, I see where that's going from there, but there's nothing overt that connects them to Fejon.
But he could easily supply something.
Well, but that's something that we have based on supposition.
No, totally. But I could, because we're getting a lot more focus on Kesserling right now and the conflict between him and Rubinsky, it makes me think that his play is not as far off as I originally thought it would be for Fejon.
Okay, I think that the idea of doing that, though, conflicts with his I want to kind of supplant you, father. I don't think it's I want to burn everything down, father kind of ambition.
Sure. Maybe
because that feels not as self-serving,
right? Like he could get caught in the collateral.
Exactly.
So maybe if he managed to make it so that it was like, I, as a loyal Empire person or something, brought this to your attention. But,
I feel like if anything, he seems like the kind of character who everyone underestimates because he came from the poor family,
right?
But he has ambition that rivals Reinhardt. And yet he has no power in terms of Reinhardt. Like, he doesn't wield fleets and,
he doesn't even have Fejon,
Right, exactly. But he has a one-step program to the highest seat in Fejon. Right. That is how close he is.
Right. Of course, the fact that Rubinsky mentioned that is probably just to basically say, to slow him, to make him hesitate just enough for when he kills Rubinsky, so that Rubinsky can kill him first. But,
And that doesn't at all seem kind of like it was running in parallel with Reinhardt's comment about how if someone was to take power, it would not be with regards to lineage. It would be, I welcome anyone to try and stab me in the back and seize power. But if they fail,
they will suffer the consequences.
I'll let them wonder about that. So only kind of what we thought the specific people that could actually and take it and wield it will actually try.
And I was a bit surprised actually that when Ruhenthal brought up that whole idea to Mittermeier, that Mittermeier was against it. Now maybe it's something where he's against it at first because of course it's a dangerous idea and whatnot, and then over time he'll be like, maybe we should do that.
I think you're right on that. Yeah,
like that's probably what it is, but. He was always the person that was telling Ruhenthal, you should, stand up for yourself more, be more assertive, things like that, right?
I wasn't meaning take over the empire, though,
Right,
yeah. I was just meaning, take a hold of your past and redeem it. Go find a girl and
say please,
settle down.
Or, I don't know.
Be the best bros together we can ever be, I feel like this is one of the wonderful things that they're setting up with Mittermeier and Ruhenthal, is that Mittermeier is the soft boy. He is very much
when it comes
pliable.
Down to it,
And yet, when we see him out and about in, conflict and stuff like that, we see the Gale
Wolf. Yeah, he strikes like lightning.
Oh, yeah. He's powerful. He comes in and he just goes, bam, this is the way things are going.
Yep.
And, if anything, Ruhenthal, you provide that little bit of balance and just come in and go, hey, you won. Let's call this here. And he's like, yeah, of course, for sure. And then they head out. But if Ruhenthal is showing signs of what maybe could be looked at as instability, but it's just, ambition and maybe a little bit of honest,
and ambition is unstable,
It is a little bit, because it requires,
change. It's disrupting the established order.
Exactly. It requires digging new ground or to build stronger foundations that you can build taller.
Now this is something that's more of just
my personal fanfic desire
kind of a thing. But or maybe just it's how I would personally want to try and act if I was in their positions, which I'm not, and I wouldn't be this. So it doesn't really work because I'm not a military guy and all of that stuff, right? I don't know what it would be like in that situation, but when you see that void of Kierheis is gone, Reinhardt needs a new Kierheis. I don't know how close they are necessarily to Reinhardt, but basically say, sir, is it okay if I speak candidly for a minute in private?
Yeah. Hell no. They would have to basically
I know I am
consistently try again and again.
Right.
A year before he'd probably let that happen with them.
But basically
they're
just
subordinates.
Definitely, right. And prefacing it all with that, and I don't know if that's something where that just inherently couldn't happen because of that whole chain of command thing or whatever. Yeah. But to basically say, we want to make sure that you are the best, person that you can be, and you haven't been the same. And that's scary because then that can put your head on a chopping block.
See, that's the thing. You got to phrase things as questions,
right?
Because if any kind of way is doing this is, I don't think it would put their heads on a chopping block. But what I think it would do, especially if you're Ruhenthal, is it just puts basically him in your he's aware of where you're thinking about this because Reinhardt's intelligent.
Right.
And if he sees someone like Ruhenthal, who he already kind of had a little bit of a look of hey,
I know what's up, man.
I saw what you went through your mind right there.
Right.
Is he goes, oh, so this is your angle? You think you can get close to me? You think you can replace Kierheis? You're welcome to try. And then he just leaves.
Right, exactly.
Reinhardt's basically bitch, whatever. That's cute.
Right. But because the thing that Mittermeier was saying of we need to be his arms and legs, right? That's that's effective, right? Like Reinhardt knows how to utilize them effectively and everything. And so like,
I just thought of something. Keep going. Yeah.
Approaching with that angle of we are your arms and legs, sir. Is there any way that we can be better arms and legs for you? Because because there was another arm that we all got along with very well, and it helped smooth things over, and that arm isn't here anymore.
The pen is mightier than the sword. They are the ink, and he is their pen.
Oh, okay.
You can look at it as the sword either way, but the metaphor is basically that he writes and he edicts the commands of how they make their marks on history. And goddamn, he writes he has a good pen. Like he has a good calligraphy. He knows how to write a story.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you rather be just, the ink in a mighty pen rather than a sword in your own hands?
That's really good. Yeah.
Like just the idea that Mittermeier sees the vast potential in Reinhardt and that he is a once in a millennia type of human being. But yes, he will burn bright, hot, and probably fast. But wouldn't you rather ride the wave of history than try and supplant it with your
and make it your own?
Try and make it your own. Because I think there's a lot of ego that's
of it being your wave rather than the wave being the best wave possible or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's something to be said about this that's really human. We are egocentric beings, like very, very much the majority of us, and I would say almost all of us. Yeah. There's always exceptions, but the point is that we very much like to make things about us as quick as possible because we sometimes need that aspect of an anchor to connect us to reality and to just all the stuff that's happening around us. We have a character at the end of this episode who is freaking out about his mortality. He's at the other end of side of things where he's like, I need a wave. Right. I don't care who makes it or how.
Sword, who cares?
Exactly. I will grasp anything in order to feel like my life had meaning.
And that's probably why it's so ominous, is because he's desperate, so he's going to do something desperate. Yeah.
So it means he has no limitations on what his ambitions or desire will lead him to do, as long as he has the power to enact it. Otherwise it'll just fail and it'll be a depressing just little blot of ink, and no one will know what it was 1,000 years from now because it never got written into a full name.
I could almost see him being the one that ends up taking out Reinhardt.
Oh god, no. I think he'll die doing something crazy.
Okay.
And it'll just be something where it's like, if this story lasts more than a month or a year, which I think it definitely will, then I don't think there's any way. Because
the terrible thing was going to happen in a month.
Right. But I'm meaning, just because the terrible thing happens there, doesn't mean it's a thing that is,
right.
He could live longer than that thing. I just don't think he's going to live that long.
I don't think so either, especially if what he does is something super extreme.
Right. So he's grasping, right? But then we have all these other characters who very much are holding their own version of the pen or the sword, and they're like, this is my life. I will put everything into this. And then there are other people who see someone else wielding the pen or the sword, and they're like, I want to support your wielding of that to the fullest.
Yeah.
And then there's Yang, who's just lamenting about the fact that he has to wield a sword.
Yeah, he's like, I have a sword right now, but I would love to actually put this down and pick up an actual literal pen.
Yep.
Yeah, and just start writing about, the people of our current age, write the legend of the Galactic heroes.
Write a dissertation on how the Alliance has fallen apart and needs to and he's like, I can't print this right now, but I'm gonna save this manuscript and write some posthumous
Julian, can you give it a once over?
But he could time capsule it literally and just be like, here's the thing that I hope eventually gets written into the history books or something like that. But I feel like this episode set about so many downfalls, but none of them are actually Reinhardt and Yang's. It's more that Reinhardt and Yang are so swept up in the wave that they're not even riding it. And they're feeling that bit of where they're like, I'm swimming, I am staying above water, but if I stop swimming, I drown.
Yeah. Yep. And Legend of the Galactic Heroes, we've talked about it and said, like, it's better Star Wars, it's all these things. It's, it's space opera, right?
I love space opera so much.
Space operas are amazing, right? Yes. And Legend of the Galactic Heroes, I feel like, really rides that fine balance between having the space opera elements but not having them too much, like it has a lot more of like the more grounded things where it's
people in a room talking
and things like that, but with a lot of the characters, they have been the galactic heroes, right? Reinhardt, Yang, all the people around them, Kirheis, and now I feel like we're kind of transitioning into almost like the Greek tragedy side of things, where it's that they're heroes, but these heroes have fatal flaws. And we're starting to see them. We're starting to see how this could potentially fall apart.
Yep.
To the point where we will need a requiem, because this is going to go spectacularly, but it's not necessarily going to go well, right? Yeah. And we've seen how it goes badly with all the other characters that weren't really characters, all the incompetent people from the previous generation. But now we need to see how it happens with this generation. We need to see how Merkatz's, wise words of warning and stuff can start to be displayed in these characters that we've known.
Yeah.
That we're doing so well.
Right.
Right? But then something starts to falter, right? The rocket's taking flight, and then it gets shaky for a second, and that escalates and turns into something crazy, and
there we go, crashes and burns.
Yeah.
Merkatz was a great point. That Merkatz was kind of almost like really overtly on the line, being like, "Oh, that sounds very antithetical to a democracy," and he's like, "Oh, what?" And then at the end of the episode, Yang is like, "No, I won't. How could I force you with that face?" Yeah. Basically saying, like, have you ever thought about?
But no.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about what if I said no? Mm-hmm. And Yang like literally couldn't say no. And maybe in some ways he could hear Merkatz's words a little bit, being like, "Hey, practice what you preach, man."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right." And he's like, "Well, I guess, Julian, you won't be a good for nothing soldier. So more power to you. Now get me more of that hot. That hot punch. Yeah, that stuff. The good stuff. Yeah. But Yang's conversation with Julian, the fact that Julian is now officially enlisting, which I'm curious to see what it means to be officially enlisted, given that he was in a lot of military situations with uniforms and literally on a fighter plane and fighter Valkyrie or whatever they're called. So that's going to be interesting.
Watch him get transferred to Heinesen.
What do you mean?
Well, like if he's officially in the military, then that's basically meaning that there will come a point where there's the conflict of, okay, I have to actually follow orders as opposed to what I personally would like to do, right?
Oh, you mean just being separate from Yang?
Well, and that could
follow. He's had to follow Yang's orders for quite a bit.
Right. But if it's something where like they're, because Yang is leading the military, but there's always the possibility for intervention, sabotage, whatever, from, Trunit and those people back on Heinesen.
I see.
And I could totally see them being like, oh, yeah, this kid, he's real close to Yang. Let's just bring him back over here,
Gotcha. Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe that's too specific of a prediction, But,
yeah, I don't know.
But those kinds of things.
We'll see, yeah. The fact, though, that all this stuff happened in the episode, but then they spent such a huge time, though, getting to have Yang basically just kind of process it all and discuss kind of how he sees history progressing, not in the literal sense, but how he sees it just continuing over the course of the continuum of time for humanity. It's pretty depressing at this point, given how much he wants to be a historian and be someone that will, provide a lens for history for so many people.
Yeah.
But instead, he's going to end up being, a slave to history at some point, because I don't see any way out of this for you, Yang.
Nope.
And especially since Fejon's about to make a big play, and something that's going to shake up both factions, the Empire and the Alliance, and he's probably going to be thrust right back into the front lines of it all again. Even with the Empire losing, what did they lose? Like 15,000 ships and 1.8 million people?
That was kind of shocking to me because it was, I mean, okay, it was a whole fleet and it was getting just torn to shreds.
Didn't retreat when he like had even the opportunity to take like hard losses, but he's like, no, we'll trade blows, and it did not work out for him. So 90% of that fleet, and
I am curious though what the total fighting force that Yang has at Iserlon is now with
10,000.
Oh, it's 10,000 total.
That was they said there was a fleet of 10,000 showing up because there was a fleet of 5,000, I believe.
That was what Yang was chasing.
Well, no, there was a fleet of 5,000 that was chasing them. Remember the fleet that was chasing Alarcons and Von Hughes? They said that I believe that there was like 5,000 ships chasing them. Let's see. We got here. It's kept as dead. Show them. Or no, they didn't actually say necessarily how many ships there were.
Because they specifically
said enemy fleet annihilated.
Right. Because that was one of the things that I was wondering about, because in the previous episode it felt like they were keeping that general. But maybe they did specifically say, but I remember that it was specifically 5,000 that Yang was bringing as reinforcements, right?
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember the reinforcements number. All I remember is when they see that, new enemy units detected after approximately 10,000, that Yang showed up to see already that the pursuers were annihilated.
Right.
They had 10,000 ships. So he could have more at Iserlon that are stationed there or something, but
right.
But no, he has at least 10,000.
Okay, cool. But because I feel like that's going to get very important in future episodes and things like that, because I don't see that number going up for a very long time.
Really?
Because the Alliance has pulled all of their other forces back to Heinesen for defense. They're already afraid of Yang having too much power, so they're probably not going to give him any more. So this feels like he now has a limited supply. He's not getting any more. He's got Iserlon and everything, but then anything from this point forward, any bad moves that people under him make, anything like that, it's whittling away at the total force that he has to work with. And I can see that becoming like a point where it's like, no, we don't really have anybody any left. Like it's like, okay, we can't compete on the level that we need to because we're outnumbered 6-1,
and we're also being literally gimped by the Alliance, which is also something that was brought up. The idea that militaries have evolved in some ways to become more oppressive towards their own people in a lot of instances in history. And we have now an instance where when they're in a state of war, the fleet is actually primarily being used as a sort of oppressive tool to keep the politicians in power.
Right.
By stationing it around Heinesen.
Now, hopefully it's not actually being
used. Well, no. I'm meaning just in the stance of that they have Yang as their perceived threat.
Right.
Therefore, they are using it in their eyes to be a check against, some kind of military hostile takeover, which isn't going to happen in any, immediate sense. Like Yang is not thinking about that right now. So, yeah. But y'all, this is a great episode. It covered a whole lot of bases here. We got a lot of things set up for future stuff, and we were teased that stuff's about to go down.
Right.
Potentially on multiple angles here with all the stuff that Fejan is maneuvering into place. So thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yes, wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. It's available on Amazon for purchase. The link is in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.